Hey guys, I'm Jessekazam, and this is the Ultimate Escape from Tarkov Beginner's Guide. In this video, we're going to be talking about preparing for your first raid. Even if you've raided a little bit, this can still be helpful to you. We're going to talk about how to prepare, what to bring, and how to be as efficient as possible during your first few raids. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So as you get ready to dive into your first few raids, or if you've already dove into a few raids and you're just stressing about how to play the game the best, I wanted to talk about how to prepare for those first few raids. And something I want to touch on relatively quickly first is gear fear. So in the community, gear fear is what we call just not running your top tier gear or the best gear that you have for fear of losing it. Now, that's a totally understandable thing. My first few, months of Tarkov, I had gear fear hardcore because this game is very unforgiving, and a lot of times it can feel like the game is really beating you down, and then you finally get your hands on a really nice kit or a really nice item or a really nice gun. And the last thing you want to do is run it and risk losing it. So you shove it in your stash and it sits there for forever. What I've learned over playing the game is that gear fear really is kind of like a negative to the experience for multiple reasons. One, most of the time, whether it's a really nice armor, a really nice weapon, or something like that, it is actually going to help you stand a better chance of surviving in your raids. So my circular thought process for a while was, well, I keep dying, so why would I use my nicer gear? Because I'm just going to die with it. But that doesn't really work, because that nicer gear might be the difference between you living and dying in a particular scenario, and then you might be able to get more gear out and more gear out. Secondly, it does you no use just sitting in your stash. I know I made the excuse, well, I'll run it eventually, and never did. I had a ton of stuff that just sat there forever, and I never used it. And you also have to think about the value proposition. You pulling that gear out of a raid means there's less actual gear that you're going to use that you're going to pull out of that raid, and it does you no good taking up stash space. There's items that you could put there that you would sell or you would use to get more money or to shoot more people, and you can't fit that in your stash. I mean, when I had my standard edition, like, there were times where I legit ran out of room because of all this gear that I was hoarding and yet refused to use. Now, as a caveat, I do want to say that there's a difference between gear fear and feeling like you don't understand X, Y, or Z element of the game yet, and you don't want to risk losing it because of that. If you want to run some more offline modes or learn the maps a little bit better. But at the end of the day, the gear that you have, you should be running, as a general rule of thumb, you should be always running the best gear that you have. That also helps. The longer something stays in your stash, I have found, the more buildup there is around that item. If I just pull a really cool gun off of somebody and I just use it immediately, the next raid, it's not as big of a deal if I lost it, because I just got it. I got it from that guy. I didn't spend the money, whatever. But if it sat in my stash for 3 weeks and then I use it, then it's this devastating loss, because you got used to looking at that awesome gun and it was just sitting there. So at the end of the day, using your best gear, unless you're doing a budget run or if you're building a specific kit for a specific reason, there's always exceptions, but using the best gear that you have as a general rule of thumb is way better for you. It's a way better value, especially when it comes to inventory space, and it is going to help. Using your best stuff and losing it, which will happen repeatedly, is going to help you kind of push through that, and you're going to just start seeing it as gear and not building it up to be this huge thing that it's not. So I wanted to touch on that really quickly, just to encourage you to use your stuff. And it's, at the end of the day, you will die, you're going to lose it. That's totally fine. This game is amazing. You're going to get more gear. So that being said, whatever edition of the account you have, whatever, if you've already raided a little bit, if it's your first raid, I'm not going to tell you what to run, but I did want to go over a few tips when you're preparing for your raids that can be really helpful. One is your secure container, especially in the beginning, you know, when you're first getting your first few raids in, when you're learning the game, is going to be a huge help and a huge way to save money. I would leverage your secure container, no matter how big, to really help save you money in the beginning, whereas later it's an opportunity to pull out really expensive things and make you money. But for instance, meds, right off the bat, when you have your standard amount of money, and if you're dying a lot, if you're learning the game, meds can be something that can end up costing you a lot. So you can decide if you want to bring some meds and some painkillers and then shove some of the other things that you might need in your gamma or your alpha or beta, whichever you have. You can opt to bring basically like a whole backup kit of meds. That's a great way to ensure that if you're going to be in a raid for a long time, you have enough meds to make it through that raid. You're not going to run out because you have a secondary set, but you're not risking that whole secondary set by sticking it in your backpack or your rig or something like that. And the beautiful thing about the secure container is that you can load it up with meds, with extra ammo, with stuff like that, and then if you come across a really amazing gun or come across something more valuable, you can just take it out, replace it, and that way you know that you can purchase those things later. Extra ammo is definitely something I would always recommend bringing, and even extra mags. So if I'm bringing this P226 and I load up a mag, if I want to put an extra mag here and then an extra mag here, I don't have to necessarily worry about bringing ammo and loading it in. I can just swap this ready to go mag in and out of my inventory. And then you can even, if you pick up a gun off a scav, you can even put your gun in your container, if it's a pistol, if it's small enough, or a really small SMG or something like that. And that helps make sure that the initial investment that you made is secure, some of that most expensive stuff like the gun, the ammo, and you have a scav kit that you can use so that you can still shoot people and take their stuff. So those are a few things that I would recommend. Using your secure container is going to be a huge help. Also, a huge help is going to be binding the meds to a keyboard layout however you like it, so you can actually just hover over it and hit whatever number that you want, whatever format or layout works best for you. But that way, instead of having to go in your inventory, right click and click use while you're in the raid, you can just click 4 and I'm going to start healing, click 5 and I'm going to start administering those pain kills, and that's going to help you just save a lot of time and get to cover while you're doing that without having to tab into your inventory. And then finally, the other thing that I think is super helpful to know, understand, and accept before you're diving into your first few raids, or as you dive into your first few raids, is that you're gonna die, and you're gonna die a lot. I think for me personally, I was watching a lot of people play the game, and that was what got me into it. And there's this expectation in my head that I'm going to be able to do what they do in the game. There really is a steep learning curve here, which is why I'm making these videos. And it's going to take you a while, most likely, to pull off really successful raids really often. But dying in this game is still a really good thing. So I have set up like the replay buffer in OBS. You can get NVIDIA Shadowplay. There's all sorts of ways to do this where if I die and I don't know how I died, I don't know where the guy came from or anything like that, I can just record that session and watch it back. Having the ability to watch that back and maybe slow it down or go frame by frame and see where you missed the guy or where your shots were going. It's really easy to be like, oh, I shot that guy in the head, or that guy was cheating, because it feels like that a lot. A lot of the time it feels like somebody got you and it's unfair, or it feels like you were shooting them right in the head. I don't know why they didn't die. But so much of the time watching it back, you'll realize that you were maybe aiming a little high, or that guy was right there in the bush and you just didn't see him. Death in this game, especially in the very beginning, is valuable, and your mindset going into these first few raids is really, really important. Being not wanting to die, not seeking it out, but being okay with it being a learning process, and the multiple many deaths that you'll experience early on in this game and all the way through playing this game are valuable, and they can all push you towards being a better player. So I can't tell you what to bring on each raid. But I wanted to take this time to just go over my opinion on gear fear, and that it's almost always a negative thing. Obviously, there's always exceptions if you're building specific kits for specific things, but utilizing the best gear that you have at your disposal is going to be valuable for you in the long run. I hope that the quick tips about some best practices around how to use your secure container early game, or how to bind meds, or that kind of stuff was helpful. And I hope that this helped kind of position you in the right frame of mind, knowing that dying in this game can be really valuable and it can help you become a better player, and that in the long run, you're really going to start to understand this game, start to become more proficient at it, and start to experience some of these kind of like just mind-boggling moments that this game can provide. So I hope that this helped. Thanks again, guys, for taking the time to check out this video. My goal is to create short Escape from Tarkov guides that help shorten the learning curve of the game and get you in having fun. Check out the links below. I stream Escape from Tarkov, so you can find the Twitch link, Twitter, Discord, that kind of stuff. Drop a comment if you liked the video, if you found it helpful, and if you want to see more Tarkov tutorials like this. Drop a like if you liked it. Think about subscribing for future content like this. Thank you all so much again for stopping by. I'll see you all in the next one.